All right. Good morning. It's the Gresham-Barlow Board of Education Board Policy Committee. In attendance, Myra Gomez, Chris Howlett, Tracy Klinger, Sarah Avery, and why do I always forget?
I don't know, but Cindy Lopez.
Cindy Lopez. I don't know why. I will write it on my hand, so I will have it. We have a few policies to go through this evening or this morning. Most of them are delete or change up. And then recommendations provided by the advisory committee are presented to the board for consideration of future school board meeting. We are an advisory committee. We don't make decisions in this group other than to recommend policies to be forwarded to the board. So I'm gonna let you take it over, Tracy.
Sounds good. So the first two agenda items are a delete and readopt and a delete, and there's overlapping pieces. So in your packet, the one with the bright yellow at the top is the proposed new policy. The ones that don't have, they're either behind, right behind it. So this is a delete one, see that? And then there's a personal services one that's delete also, that I think some of it's embedded. So I think the strategy for this is to look at the one with the bright yellow at the top, that's the proposed revisions. And be sure that that covers what.
And most of, is the strikeout just because the law changed and how they did it, or was it just kind of consolidating it, making it a little bit simpler?
I'm not sure.
And then there's some bracketed language that we need to add.
Yep, there's
Okay.
some decision points all the way through, really, some things to peek at. I can't see at the top. I feel like that yellow part at the top, I'm gonna pull it up in the email, is references that big strike. That's a little bit hard to read.
Right.
So it's a highly recommended policy. The board serves as the local contractor review board, which is what that paragraph
Right.
is struck.
Right.
And has the ability to adopt its own procurement rules. Many districts choose to use the Oregon Attorney General's model public contracting rules in OAR chapter 137, blah, blah, blah. If the LCRB does not adopt rules, the Attorney General's model public contracting rules apply. This policy is based on those rules, so it's based on the Attorney General's rules for contracting. So.
So when I was looking at this, except for taking out the highly recommended policy part and then the last sentence, but it seemed like that particular paragraph had relevance. That was just a little bit more detailed rather than the first new one that they put in or left. And then they struck this out.
So I think in looking at this, this is you can either follow these Attorney General guidelines,
Right.
or they had an or.
Got it.
You can direct your own, create your own.
Okay.
So this is just, this will go, that just explains it. We would just leave policy to say, we're gonna follow the Attorney General rules.
Okay. Okay. And then there was a highlight on page 3.
So the strike on that first page of that paragraph is connected then to the strikes in the footnotes.
Right.
So those are all connected.
Right.
And then page 2 doesn't look like there's any changes.
Page 3.
And page 3 has a highlight.
It's special. It means if we have something like we have where we've used it as like a storm situation where we haven't gone out for a full bid on something to have some work done because it's a little bit more of a priority. So it just says we can do an exemption from competitive bidding.
Seven, if the LCRB has.
It just
designated
includes the
contract-
AR. It's just a note.
I don't know why we wouldn't have it referenced already. So I think the brackets in 6, those yellow ones. We would want to have, right?
Mhm, mhm,
So those are a yes,
mhm.
and then. I think as we go through it, Cindy, the what, like those little squiggly brackets, whatever those are called, we'll just have to make sure we delete. Those. Because they're just notes, so there's one
Oh, there's one on
for
here.
9 and 7.
Well, and there's on on the footnote too, there's a little squiggly. But those look like they've been in there. I don't know why those would be in there.
Then the squiggly is just a note to us, right? If
Okay.
it's a square bracket, then it's choose this or
Right,
that,
right,
right?
right, right.
And if it's the squiggle one, or less, I don't know what it's officially
Yeah,
called, but the
I
squiggle
don't know what they're
bracket,
called.
then it's just a note, it's just information for us to help with decision making.
Okay, okay.
So then any of those squiggle ones would go.
Well, why would this footnote number 2 on page 1? Why would that?
It would just say CRS and the number, and it would delete the rest, the LCO
Okay.
and formally at top, because that's just for us to know what it's referring to.
So does that wind up going in the AR?
If the LCO formally adopts the rules, the district is required to review.
It
the
just feels like a
AG.
weird one to take off and not have, because we don't do this very often.
Yeah,
This isn't one of those things where we're bidding things frequently. And so I just don't want to lose that as
yeah, that
information.
actually does it say it up above somehow?
Um,
Additionally. Cause it's basically saying if we adopt the AG rules, then we need to review the AG rules.
right, right. Each
Which
time we do it to make
feels
sure
like a
that,
good reminder.
right, right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was
Mhm.
thinking.
So. Keep squiggles.
Mhm. And keep the sentence or
Mhm,
whatever,
yeah.
you know, squiggle or
Mhm.
not, but keep the sentence.
Yeah,
Okay.
so page 2 looks. Okay, page 3.
Page 3, there was, or page 3, there was just the one at the top. That we have.
And then
the
there's
AR.
another squiggle. Number 9 in that
Mhm.
second paragraph, so that's.
Well, yeah, there's,
LCRB it has designated contracts or classes of contracts. As personal service contracts include this information here. So that's where there's this overlap, right? Because we have a personal services contracts that we're deleting, a policy that we're deleting.
mhm.
Designate certain service contracts or classes of service contracts as personal service contracts and exempt them from competitive bidding.
And that kind of ties into what the highlight is on number 7, that we could use special procurement for.
These items be qualifications. I don't think that.
Because we have an AR for this, we didn't get it to look at, but we have an AR for it, right?
I'm looking at the contract that's the other, so the other policy that we're deleting is personal service contracts.
Uh-huh,
So I'm looking to see what our current policy. This goes. They enter into personal service contract with the current district employee.
it talks about the attorney general. And basically paragraph 6 and 7 describe what the policy is, DJCA that we're deleting.
So I think that's part of it. What it doesn't. There's a difference in the amount. This is
Yeah.
personal service contracts of 150.
Right.
Procurements for services, but that's not personal service contract per se. So I don't feel like this is proposing anything that's a change, but I would like,
Under the personal service, that paragraph 7 in DJC, whether or not it needs to include that 150,000, is that what you're?
or if the 250 that's right below that then applies. Let's maybe peek at the AR.
The DJC has 250, and then the JCA has 150 for personal services.
AR for this is long enough.
Mhm.
I just wonder if what we want to do is, DJCA. We don't have an AR for
No, and
the personal service contract.
because it says on page 2 of the DJC. For procurement, purchase of goods exceeding 25 or exceeding 25, but not exceeding 250. And it talks about regular procurement, 250, regular procurement.
Mhm.
And then we go into special procurement. Doesn't have any price on it, but then personal services just feels like it should have. I think somebody copied the wrong sentence.
And we
Because why would it go from 150 to 250 for personal services when?
Well, remember when we upped that to 250? I wonder if it didn't get changed in the personal
Okay,
in something.
okay,
So I'm wondering. I don't see this as a change in practice, and I know we have a procurement chart that we
Mhm.
use that says amounts, that tells us what to do.
right.
So I wonder if should take it to the. Pete supported me a lot with procurement stuff, so.
Just to make sure,
Just to
yeah,
like,
that
is
they
there
haven't
anything
deleted
we're not-
something, yeah, yeah,
That we're
okay.
missing, or does this
Cause
seem,
Dennis has reviewed these.
and
right?
he didn't,
No, he, in the email, he says that he's advocating we adopt the new policy thresholds.
okay.
Okay, okay,
I think my question is less about that and it's more about the personal services contract.
Right.
piece. And if it's then, it's maybe an AR that adjustment that needs to happen. Cause it's saying LCRB, which is the,
contract review board,
yeah, will designate certain service contracts or classes of service contracts as personal services contracts and exempt them from competitive bidding. I just don't feel like we've done that, because even if we've had a smaller contract, we get multiple quotes. Um. Even if we don't have to do a full procurement process,
Okay,
so. I think the recommendations are fine. I
Okay.
might dig into a few more questions,
okay,
just to be sure, or to be sure that we can explain it to the rest of the board.
right,
If-
right, it doesn't look like we're
questions.
not getting
Mhm.
bids when we should.
How do you feel about that, Myra?
I'm not gonna be here next week.
You have experience with personal service
I do.
contracts.
Yeah.
Expert. Is there anything we're missing from
No,
To move it forward, you see?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then remind me to connect with.
Okay.
So we would delete the bidding requirements, delete the personal services contracts, and propose adopting the updated policy. Okay, so we got 3 done just like that.
All right.
This next one is gonna probably be a
You're good.
bit of a
Have them in order, so
conversation.
it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Are we obligated to do them in any particular order
No.
if it's on the
No,
agenda?
if it's on the agenda.
The only
Uh-huh.
reason I'm saying that is I know we have some. Not urgency, but the graduation
requirement.
policy has some things where it's like, well, in practice, we're already doing that, but our policy doesn't actually say that, and it's a recommended change. So are we,
Let's-
could we
sure,
jump
let's
to
jump, yeah,
graduation?
yeah.
I don't think it'll
Yeah.
take us very long.
Okay.
But there were some changes that needed to happen in synergy,
Okay.
and so, if we can get it to the May meeting, then that will help.
Okay.
the tech team, I think.
Yeah, I hate doing that, but I don't want people to think I'm hiding pages. Right. I'm like, I would just print that.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this one back in.
You want me to pass this out, Tracy? Or
Okay,
or are you good?
Let's,
Okay.
we will, when we need that part.
okay, all right, so graduation requirements.
Graduation
First one to look at?
requirements.
Okay,
Every year, darn it. we just
Right.
Look at this massive policy. So. Just some cleanup at the very beginning. The main thing that we want, that is surfacing right now is actually that last bullet, the certificate of attendance piece.
Mhm, mhm.
So we've always offered an alternative certificate. The certificate says certificate of attendance, and there's a need to change it in synergy. And so that's part of the piece that's popping up right now.
And who gets certificates of attendance?
It tends to be students who. Oh, now I'm struggling with this because there's the modified, there's the
But
extended.
these are like the highly impacted, usually have severe health issues.
Okay,
And
So it's
can't
like they
get
come
even
to
the-
school, but they
the
can't necessarily
modified.
show that
Mhm.
they've
Okay.
met standards or those sort of
Mhm,
things.
mhm.
and then extended, I know modified.
I think they're defined in here, so
Is the
let's.
extended just longer time, I thought, when I read that.
3 credits, so there's, we'll come back to the credit stuff, but that just reflects law. So back in the back, so modified. Tends to be the diploma,
Page 4.
yes, 4 has a definition for modified there.
Yeah, no.
And then I was looking for extended though.
And extended is on page 7.
Okay.
And then there's strikes around the alternative pieces after that.
And is an Is there an age limit on an extended diploma? Is that part of that up to 21 kind of thing? Is that just part of the, it doesn't say in here anywhere.
I think they all are.
Self-contained.
Is everything
So
up to 21?
extended is
Okay.
more related to special education, so.
Or someone injured.
So a self-contained special, so 6 credits in special ed.
Okay.
Extended program,
Okay.
modified,
Mhm.
document history, inability to make any grade level achievement. With any of these, it's really. And we have brochures to share with families, but the conversations around different types of diplomas start really early
Mhm.
with students.
And it seems like part of that was, the result of, I can't think of her name, but the particular legislator in Oregon who really wanted to make sure that kids were given more than just holding time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When kids are not in our district, like for elementary, but they're coming into our middle schools, or they're not with us in middle schools, but are coming into our high schools. How did they come enroll, and then do we make them part at that moment when they enroll, do we start sending them information on the programs and about like all this information, do they just automatically start getting all the
A
information?
lot of it happens in the IEP process, so a
Okay.
lot of it's documented there. So that information should travel with the student,
Okay,
but it's part of our process, and I know our support services has like a brochure of
and that
the.
would include like kids who've been in private schools or homeschool or
Mhm.
any other setting that's not a public school.
Yeah, because if they come in with that level of need or support, then there's some kind of
Okay.
staffing happening, or then they're engaging in a special education process if
Okay.
they haven't been in one.
Okay. So our
But even our private schools, I mean,
yeah,
they have some service.
so like our foster
Mhm.
kids or foster kids,
Mhm.
they would either get evaluated or we would get information from them.
Mhm. Here's the page 2, page 9. It's a little bit, I think, what you were asking, Myra, with district responsibilities in terms of ensuring access, not holding kids to to a diploma if they have they start to demonstrate more capability, or to switch the type of diploma,
Okay.
that opportunity is there.
And why did we strike out that they could participate in the graduating ceremony? Is that someplace else? Right in the middle of the page, under district, yeah, yeah.
Seem to receive a modified or some.
Why would we strike that?
I'm not sure.
So I was looking to see.
The diploma option is changed.
Look, it has moved to something place else.
Yeah, I can't find it though.
Neither can I.
It would be
part
highlighted.
Part of me is like, well, of course they are.
Duh,
So
right?
like, it's like,
Yeah.
because, is
Yeah.
it because it's a dust?
Except
But-
that I would think
We'd still want.
I would want to put it in there to make sure that there's not someone who would ever say, well, you didn't get the same diploma as,
Yeah.
um.
If it's less time.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't see it in
Looking
the
in the
footnote or anywhere
footnotes.
else. Yeah, I looked in the footnotes. I looked on 10.
I just
Um,
searched.
it talks about satisfying it. Oh, here we go.
That's
It is
Jamie.
right in the middle of
Yeah.
the page. Yep. So they
So
put
it
it
just
in,
got
but they,
moved.
yeah. So it's right in the
Oh,
middle of
here.
page 10.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
so that part was moved.
yeah, okay. I knew I'd seen that. I
District
can't remember where.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I will say Tim is our graduation requirement expert. So he dug into this and pretty much was like, this is what we already do. This just
Mhm, mhm.
would formalize some things in synergy. There was some things
Okay.
that popped up in terms of how do we document it electronically.
Mhm.
So then the other layer of this is around some of the requirements.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if we're ready to move to kind of that piece of this conversation.
Mhm.
So there are,
What page you?
well, just that
Oh.
piece, it's kind of starts on two with some different change, just like with the credits, and then there was the
Right.
ad of it goes on and on.
Mm.
Where was the part that was the ad of the personal finance and that place? I just missed that.
That's in page 3, top of page 3.
Yeah. I was like, there's a
Okay,
three,
perfect.
nine, it's
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
six.
So the ad of those and some adjustments and Tim thinks in charts. So there's an ODE chart that
Mhm.
summarizes graduation requirements. He's like, should we just switch to,
A chart.
yeah, that makes it more
Oh,
clear? So
now-
he gave
now
us,
it's the chart time.
so he
okay.
gave us a sample, like we could go a different direction that might make it more clear.
Mhm. A chart is nice, because trying to read through this to find it is, and I don't know if you would include both. That this is more the descriptor part,
Mhm,
what is encompassed in some of this.
mhm.
And then this is nice if somebody just wants to pull
A
up and
summary.
say,
Mhm.
what do I need to do here?
This
Mhm.
already how it's in the student handbook or in the.
Well, that's the, we don't really have charts in policy, so is
Oh,
there
I
something
see.
about that? Like, I can't.
Like they
Is
really
it an
like bullets as
accessibility
opposed to
thing?
table, well,
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Accessibility online, like.
But even bullets can be hard to read some, because it.
Oh, yeah, I'm not
because it'll
arguing
get
that, I just
formatted.
don't know
Yeah,
what
it
like
gets
the.
formatted, and suddenly you've got something on one page and the other.
Yeah.
Can this be just, did we ever put an appendix in a policy?
You're the expert.
I don't know.
I-
I was like,
Well, I don't know. Cause I liked simple.
Cause I feel like I know
This
ARs
is
have.
so
like,
much
and
simpler,
And this is,
right?
you know,
Like,
for a
yeah.
12-page policy that affects that people don't intrinsically know. They
Mhm.
remember their time, they maybe remember something
Mhm.
else, and it does change. And when someone's just trying to figure out.
What I don't think we can do, so like with ODE, these are all links, so then is there is a change, then the link changes, so it can't, this
Mhm.
can't be a linked thing because
No.
it can't be something that's dynamic somewhere else, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But in terms of just a simplified way to look at graduation requirements,
Because
Yeah, just
Tim
this,
wants
like-
the notes added. The note part,
Okay.
he says
The
that,
note part is okay, but not the hyperlink.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, it would say
Um,
language arts and not.
And
the
it just
hyper-
needs,
Right.
if we included this, it would need to have a revision date on it,
Mhm.
you know, so that we know that this is as of
Mhm.
today.
So
April
Cindy, what I hear you
2025.
saying is like with where it references language arts, he would want it to reference the
the
graduation for blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
what the notes say. So either we add the notes.
And he said that with the bullet points, that'd be a lot.
No,
Yeah.
no, because
Mhm.
this is, see, on that first language arts, I wouldn't include that. It is what it is. There's no. It is what it is. There's no,
Mhm.
the average person doesn't need that information. It changed, fine, it changed. What's the new thing? And
And the average person really didn't refer to it as a unit.
right,
They
right,
had referred to it
Right.
as language arts.
right.
Well,
Math simplified must be algebra 1 and above. Boom.
So then
Um,
that gets to be added in the policy, right? Cause in the policy, it
Yeah.
doesn't say one, level 1 and above.
Let's see, so 4 credits of English language arts. Yeah, it does say 4 credits, 3 credits of math with algebra 1. 3 credits of science.
but this says 2 credits of math.
No, it says 3.
Is it for the under the right diploma?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I'm under
Yeah,
modified.
I'm looking on page 2. Okay,
Okay, there we go. 3 of math,
3 math,
which it already has the note basically about algebra.
uh-huh.
What
Three of
if,
science.
Tracy, I remember at some point it was like integrated math. I mean, Said took integrated like math 3, 4, it was like integrated maths, and I was supposed to combine different standards, and they would get a chance to review them again, when did we go
Some
back to
of-
this?
Some of that was the shift to the math 2+1. The whole, the two required courses of math and then giving like pathways for math. So now that's where we have a financial,
Okay.
algebra, that's
Mhm.
one of the 3 credits, or there's, I think, is it data reasoning is another one, there's still a
Remember
traditional
that.
calculus.
Okay,
I
but
think it was part of all of that shift, was you have to have these 2 core math classes, and then you get to
Do
kind
that
of do that
integrated.
branchy.
okay, so now it's both?
No, we don't have integrated anymore.
Nothing at all.
Mm-mm.
So all that
What would we
work,
do?
so I remember it took districts years to get to that point.
Wasn't that middle, wasn't integrated in the middle?
It was like 8th grade, it
Yeah.
was starting 8th grade so
Yeah.
that kids were being tracked,
Yeah.
and now we're tracking again?
No, we still haven't, the algebra path, but they're not. It's actually increased rigor for everybody rather
Okay.
than given less rigor.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there were standards, and this is where Tim would be the expert, but there were standards that we weren't getting to, so it was increase the requirements basically for all to try to get them on that path. And some of that was connected to the whole 2+1 thing in high school. Yeah,
Yeah, so I do realize that they do, it is spelled out starting on page 2, going to page 3.
yeah,
But I do like a simplified chart, somewhat. I'm not necessarily some of the notes, I wouldn't include it.
yeah. I think technically the policy's correct, right? And this is
Yeah.
what he used to double check it. And he
Right,
probably was
right.
like, you know what, this format makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
So if there's not the notes that we want to add, then we probably leave it as is.
mhm.
But really the biggest change is the alternative certificates
Mhm.
piece.
Which is now a certificate of attendance.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of including this, however we would call it, as an appendix or something, put it in. Corporate and
Does-
eliminate the description on the side, the notice. Because if it's not anyplace else, if it's not in the student handbook, is it,
Yeah, and we don't have an AR anymore.
right?
It might be digital now, I don't know.
Mhm.
But how is this all communicated to families, and then what training do counselors get? I feel like I get different information depending on which counselor I go to.
Yeah, I probably don't have the details enough. I mean, I can talk in general in terms of, the. In terms of the requirements. They have their, like, all the pieces with school links, and then they have is it their junior year that you get like the summary of the requirements, and so they are creating supports for families and communication for families about where their kids are at. I actually just found Kyle's because we were moving from sophomore, junior year. So it says like has completed this many credits, is on track or whatever to show all those requirements.
But I'm just like wondering how, if there's a training for counselors on how to communicate with families, and also some kind of information session for parents to know what they're looking at. Cause I know like on parent view, I can see the
Yeah.
test scores and I can see transcripts. But I know what that looks like.
Right,
So
Mhm.
how would a family that doesn't know what a transcript is, know how
Yeah.
to navigate parent view? It's a great tool. But if you don't know what's there, then there's no,
yeah,
no use.
Mhm.
I can check with Carla on that.
And some of the schools in the beginning of the year do sessions with families to train them on parent view.
Good.
So I know at Gordon Russell, they do
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
and they do Spanish and English sessions
Nice.
for
Yeah.
families to understand, and a lot of the time it's just helping them to log in. Right, they
Oh,
forgot their
I've done that
password,
too. Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
so they usually hold a night, and a lot of families do go.
Yeah, so maybe
help
having
them.
those regularly,
Mhm.
because if I'm told as if I have an eighth grader and I'm told what a transcript is, it's not gonna become relevant to me until maybe they
Mhm.
fail like last freshman year. or they have-
Mhm,
Right, like,
mhm.
Mhm.
Cause it's important in eighth grade, but it's not as important
No.
as a high school
No.
transcript.
Mhm.
you're more concerned about them transitioning into high
Uh-huh.
school.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I
Yeah.
would suggest just having those type of
Mhm.
sessions that Cindy is describing like
Mhm.
regularly.
Okay, so,
Now, do you wanna go on
Ray
and do the
has a
comparison
lot to-
at 10? Oh, sorry, we just.
well, so we're talking about looking at how we could add this chart
Right.
as an appendix or a supplement.
Right,
That's actually fine.
And then we still have some questions around training with
Right.
families,
Right.
communication. And then there was one other thing I thought like I was gonna jot down. Has the new requirements in there. And really, okay, so. The new recs for Senate Bill 3, but then it's also mostly, it's pretty much current practice.
mhm, mhm.
Okay,
Essential skills coming back?
is what?
Essential skills?
I think it wasn't it waived until 2027?
What page you on?
7. Under essential skills, you read that little bit at the bottom.
Yeah.
Which one are the lessons to demonstrate proficiency?
And
Oh,
it's
we
in,
didn't
it's
pick
in
that.
weird bracketed
Yeah,
stuff, it's in
yeah.
little curlies and brackets.
So, yeah, so down at the bottom. OAR waives this requirement through 27-28 school year. Therefore, these two sections, essential skills and essential skills appeal, are not required to be in policy at this time.
27, 28.
We
So
probably
where
should
is
look
it
at that.
footnoted to?
Well,
Where's
and
the
I'm thinking
footnote at?
like, if it's gonna
I know,
be,
but where is it
it's at the
at?
bottom. of
Oh, no,
seven.
here it is, it's on the bottom, but then. But I'm trying to figure out where it's attached to.
It's up here, essential
At the
skills.
top of, yeah, essential skills, the 22.
Oh, the little 22 up there. I keep
Anytime
looking
you
for it.
have 22 footnotes, something is
Yeah.
wrong.
Well, and if it's gonna be a requirement in 27, 28, then the ELL
It's
teachers need to
28
start
footnotes.
discussing this to be ready.
There's a total of 28.
So
footnotes.
Sarah, we didn't talk about
Yeah.
our.
Say that again,
admin
Myra.
one, right?
That if it's gonna be a
That's what
requirement
we're
in
talking about right
27,
now. Whether we're
28,
gonna,
then.
because this
the
whole
ELL
section
needs
is
to start
bracketed.
Talking about how to
So we have
prepare
to
for
decide
this
if we're
now,
including that whole
so
thing.
that they're
and
ready
then
for
we'll
when this
decide-
comes
Break
back
off in
again.
sections if you don't agree.
Because if the
with
kids
anything.
are gonna be able to show proficiency
Well, I
in
think
their
we
home
decide
language,
if we're,
then
because this bracket
they
is
need
like
to be
that.
ready with those
Right.
assessments.
We
So
already
we
do.
would need to
We
decide.
already
Same ones,
grant
same
ones.
credit, we already
We
grant
would go to this
credit
smaller bracket.
for like Spanish language arts.
Oh, right, but are those the
And these ones
same as
down
essential
here?
skills? I guess
Yeah.
the essential skills, from what I remember, they were like those writing tests
Mhm.
that they had to complete and
Mhm.
score. Is that what these are, or is it just essential skills like proficiency in language arts? That's what I'm wondering. And if it's gonna be assessments, then do they still have a bank, or do they still,
Yeah.
like, are they gonna need training on how to score them?
Let me look in our shared drive, because we have. We have a guidance paper on that. I don't know if it references. Essential skills.
Yeah, it says that the district will develop procedures to provide local performance assessments. So will teachers need a refresher, because it's been a while
Yeah.
since
when
those were a
we-
requirement.
I won't be shocked if. It goes away. Completely. Let's see, where's. Access to linguistic inclusion for high school credits.
So we're just gonna do a time check.
Oh, in 43.
Yeah. Cause otherwise I gotta bug out of here.
I'll loop back to that. I think it's probably covered in this. Guidance paper we have.
Like, just for
But-
teachers to be aware that it's coming up and it doesn't catch them by surprise or
Mhm.
time crunch.
And we do, as this team needs to decide, do we want to leave essential skills in there? because at the bottom it says, we can decide to just pull those two sections out of the policy now, and then somehow remember to put them back in 27, 28, or we could leave them with just the footnote.
I would guess it
prefer
would come
to,
back with OSBA again in 27, 28.
Probably,
but I like leaving it there.
that's kind of my gut.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
okay,
So leave it.
yeah, and then there was brackets.
So those
we
brackets,
will
we
allow-
those brackets.
Yeah, so will we allow it? We'll allow ELL to demonstrate proficiency in their. And
Yeah,
its
I'm
language
pretty
of
sure
origin,
we-
the correct
Yeah.
phrasing, okay,
Mhm,
so we will allow
mhm.
and will develop and. And then there's big bracket.
For the appeal first.
Appeal process for essential skills, or is that public complaint? I don't think that really feels like public complaint.
Mm-mm.
That doesn't feel right at all. So
I think
establish an appeal process. Cause that keeps it with you guys, not the board.
Mhm.
And then, oh, and this whole essential skills, so we're keeping that whole bracket, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes good sense.
Okay,
Okay,
Is this one
we'll look
coming
at
back
a-
or moving forward.
I think it's ready for a
I
conversation.
think we can bring it.
We've got to
forward,
figure out
yeah.
how, I'm looking at you two, how to figure out the chart piece of how that gets in there.
Mhm,
So I'll lean on my colleagues to help with that.
mhm. I like charts.
Okay.
Brackets that we need to
and then
Do you
decide
wanna do
too.
compulsory attendance?
It's
JPA.
probably quicker.
Yeah.
And the only question I had about that, because that was the question I just asked about the facilities one, we
Mhm.
have the AR in here. And. There's a whole lot of stuff with the AR.
Tracy,
Yeah,
and the graduation ones, Cindy was pointing out, the footnotes on page 8. There's a bracket about regular full-time attendance. And the same with
oh,
So
will
the
they,
same
will they be
brackets.
counted or not counted?
bottom of page 9 as
Yeah.
well.
Cause we're doing compulsory attendance.
25.
And
And
that's,
there's also number 2
So
under
certificate
paid
attendance.
attendance.
yeah,
25 is number 2 at the bottom,
Mhm.
Tracy.
Yeah,
That's the bracketed, which is why that footnote's in brackets, because that whole number 2 is bracketed.
so the question on it is excused
Okay.
absences, are they considered an absence or are they not counted against the student? And I don't know how big of a problem that is with someone saying my kid's absent is absence is
Well,
excused.
especially if they're getting a certificate of attendance due to a health reason,
Mhm.
they could
right.
preclude them from getting.
I don't-
That's the whole no.
Yeah, I would need to check into that detail with high
Okay,
school folks about how we actually have been doing that.
okay, so that's on both page 8
And
and
are
9.
they, yeah,
Yeah, cause, and it's interesting, regular full-time attendance is 10% of the school days. And then it says on page 9, regular full-time attendance is not more than 8 or more unexcused absences in a 4-week period. This just sounds like a
where
lot
does
of,
it say that?
it's a footnote on page 9 at the bottom. It's a bracket language. Cause on page 8, it has regular full-time attendance is not more than 10% of the school days. And then it says something else, 8 or more unexcused absences in a 4-week period. Which, wow, that would be a lot. That'd be more than 10%. Calculated on an annual basis and equates to having unexcuses for more than 20%.
So that one is And so.
So it sounds like one or the other of those, it's like it went on to 2 pages because of the length, but it's choosing one or the other.
Oh, gotcha.
What is regular full-time attendance? Is it
Mhm.
10% bump or is it a lot more?
Let me see what our current
Okay,
practice is, and one's an OAR and one's an ORS, like, I think
uh-huh,
taking,
okay,
digging into that. The
okay,
first one is more of what I'm traditionally used to is the 10% of school days.
uh-huh,
But because that's related. That's part of certificate of attendance, and the purpose of certificate attendance might be medical. I don't know how that plays out.
mhm,
But it's still unexcused,
mhm,
and if there's medical, then it is excused.
right. Um,
I bet that's part of what Darren was trying to figure out when he was asking, because it's how the attendance plays out with the, who qualifies for that.
Right.
Okay.
mhm,
And excused absences and unexcused absences are also, those are not objective.
no, they're not.
So it's still, it's more, is it an absence or like, does it count against the student or not? Or should attendance even be considered when showing proficiency or completing graduation requirements?
But this is more for the certificate of
Yeah, that's-
Or
attendance.
even for the certificate of attendance,
But if you're not attending,
right, but because if a student is out for whatever reason,
uh-huh,
they can do prearranged absences, they can do online school, we can provide tutors.
but that
I mean,
wouldn't,
there's
that
different-
wouldn't be, that would still be in attendance then.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, should attendance still count against a student when they can show proficiency or meet requirements without being in a seat?
But I don't think that's
But
what
this
attendance
section is for
means.
students that can't show proficiency or because they're.
And I
highly
would
impacted
assume
in
by
other ways.
looking at this, that attendance means a physical location in the building.
And that's what I'm saying, like, should they need to have physical attendance in the building?
No,
That's my, yeah. that's-
I don't think they
agree with
should.
you.
I don't think they should. So I don't think that, and that's a question too then, Tracy, is,
That's, yeah, that's
is,
my
is attendance mean physically in the building, especially with our whole change up of being able to do
That's exactly what. I'm saying.
remote work? Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And I do like, just even think about COVID as the example, right? As long as there was interaction online, that counted as,
Yeah.
Right.
you weren't absent.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
okay, I'll do a little more digging in. Who, do we
I-
feel like we're, with all those questions that we're ready to?
No, let's wait
Okay.
and get some more answers, because otherwise it'll be really confusing trying to explain it to the board.
Yeah, that's kind of,
Okay, so bring back to the next policy.
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
and I might bring him.
Uh-huh. Okay. Now we got compulsory attendance. You have to show up. Or you have to be, so what is attendance? Regularly attend.
So this is a look at pushing.
And do we ever issue citations? No,
We haven't done that for years.
okay, okay.
Um. So what's required is the policy piece. And are there pieces of the AR that's coming into the policy? So Dawn reviewed the policy for us
Mhm.
and gave us some feedback.
Don't
Thank you.
speak that.
Okay.
Don't speak that.
Two exceptions I appreciate in the PPS policy. So,
Oh, so it's in that second paragraph, legal control.
mhm.
And we don't get into, and PPS doesn't use OSBA as their policy thing. They write their own policies with their own attorneys. Um, we could have a statement like this in every single policy for a reason why we have it. I don't think that belongs in policy.
Mhm.
It would go in the student handbook.
Yes. That's where it would fit.
Well, and honestly, we're blasting it all over social media right now. trying
Right,
to
so
get
it doesn't belong in policy.
kids. Yeah,
Um,
what do you think about that person's having legal control?
um,
Maybe just care provider.
I mean, we've struck out everything except control. That's the only word we have left. Parents having control, persons having control of a child.
Mhm.
So we've struck out all the legal control part.
Yeah, whoever. control
Persons
doesn't
having
have a teenager.
control,
Right.
child.
Um, I think the PPS language actually is okay. I don't know what you think, Byron. You're right, a teenager who has control of a teenager. To go in control. I go sit in your office.
I think we can go to the itinerary, it should be.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I got another meeting book. So,
Why isn't it just even parent or guardian?
That's, yeah, parent, guardian, or care provider.
Down a little bit further, a parent who is not supervising their child. So it feels like instead of the whole control, legal, whatever.
and it may
we
not
just
be
say-
the parent. You know, I think, where am I at now? I lost my page. JFA.
Haven't we used parent or guardian most
Parent or
places?
guardian, I thought.
So what if we change that legal control, like that person's to parent or guardian?
Of a
The parent or
child.
guardian. Does that sound?
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm. And do we actually have attendance monitors?
We have liaisons that do some work around attendance, but we don't have people like reporting violations, like that's not,
Okay.
like that's
mean, is
not
that- I
actually
mean-
something that.
Would that be, you know, in an informal that it's either the principal talking to you and saying, hey, you know, we've got a kid that just isn't showing
Yeah.
up, or talking to someone else that couldn't help provide, why is this student not coming? And then have we ever done citations?
We have not done citations for some time. There was a period of time years ago where we did, but then the county did never. Like
What happens
there
if they
wasn't,
don't
there
pay?
wasn't anything that ever happened. It was
Right.
just kind of this, so that practice has pretty much
So it could.
gone away,
be
but it
condition-
could happen.
Yeah, so if it
Mhm.
could be, then we could leave it in there and just say,
Mhm.
you know, we don't.
Yeah. And we have, I mean, we do have
Do we have a
kids that have
procedure?
never been to school and show up as 7-year-old, but we
Right.
don't then report the family, right? We,
Right. So will we develop procedures for issuing a citation? Do we have a procedure? Would we just
I
follow
would
the
say that
ORS?
we just follow the ORS.
Okay, so do we need to develop a procedure?
We can develop a procedure, but it doesn't include a citation, it doesn't have to include a citation. Didn't we talk about this one before when we were talking about attendance?
I don't know. Okay.
There's what are the forms? See, that's a non-enrollment notice, irregular attendance notice, like we have letters of. Like nudge letters.
Uh-huh.
Technically, there is a superintendent's notice in here of. Like your child is not enrolled.
Mhm. Or,
That's-
or your child's not showing up.
And
are
that's
they
in
then-
the AR.
Are they in danger then of being dropped? Is that what happens as well? I mean,
That
rather
doesn't
than.
make any sense. to
No.
drop it.
No, well, it
But
doesn't.
sometimes
but-
the policy
I mean,
don't.
but I don't know if that's a terminology, you can drop them so that you can provide special
Mhm.
services. You know, something like that, so, okay. Sorry.
I mean, technically, the law says we can provide a citation, and so I guess in our AR, we do have. The procedures in terms of notice. The citation piece is struck in the AR, so
I
I'm
wouldn't do
wondering
that.
about that.
I don't think those are effective at all.
I would agree.
And then the AR, it says parent or guardian, Tracy,
It does?
Yeah.
Okay,
whether a parent or guardian has failed to enroll their child. Blah, blah, blah.
so the policy itself. Probably looks okay. The AR, if the policy is approved, then probably needs another revisit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think technically. The attendance policy is correct.
Okay, move to the board and bring back the AR.
Well, the AR would go to
Cabinet.
Cabinet.
Even if it's adopted,
Oh, shoot, that's right.
that's why we
It's
brought it
adopted
here.
one. Fetch. Did Dawn look at the AR also, or just the policy?
I send them both,
Okay,
but Don's the only one that replied. Maybe we could get, Michelle and Sarah, DeBoy to look over it.
It's interesting, the citation part is all crossed out from the AR, but it's still
Mhm.
included in the title, so I would take it off of the title. It's in brackets, citation is in brackets.
well, why is it? So I think what we didn't do is on the AR, the top says. We should consult with our ESD. To see who's issuing a citation if at all. I don't think we are. So then we would strike the citation part. But then it seems like. I guess
In
the
the
policy.
ESD, are they talking about the area too, like if other districts in around the area might be issuing citations? So if somebody moved from Reynolds to ours and Reynolds had been issuing a citation and then. I don't, and I,
Yeah.
no, they might not, I'm just using them because they're
Yeah.
close neighbors.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
us. And I know we have movement a lot between
Yeah.
Centennial and Reynolds and.
It's just interesting that all the citation stuff is,
In the AR, but not the.
well, and I'm just sorting out in my head, like legally in policy, there can be a citation, right? So legally there can be, so then the AR is like, so in practice,
This
does
is
our
how it would happen
MESD
if we
support us
need
in
one,
doing
yeah.
that? And if they don't, then it comes out of here. I'm just trying to sort out that relationship between policy and AR and where law falls and where like more local decision-making falls, right?
Yeah, I've always seen the ARs where the local, more
Yeah.
local decision making will fall,
Mhm.
like.
So it seems like it's
The
okay.
policy
that-
is like the bigger, like, this is
That's-
the law, like,
Mhm.
yeah, you need to follow
Mhm.
this.
So that's why it stays there.
And
but
the
then
AR
it's
is more like,
potentially
okay,
struck.
how do we fulfill this now? Like, what's our
Mhm.
process?
Yeah, I think we need more time with this AR.
Okay, so push
Do we
forward.
still want to move the policy forward or we
Probably not,
bring,
right?
okay. Let's see, bring both policy and AR back.
There a neighboring district that's super on top of policy? I'm just
I mean, I
wondering
could
about
reach
looking at
out
some of
to
our,
my
looking at
counterparts.
some of our neighbors' policy is what I'm wondering, like, I'm wondering what. I immediately go to North Platte, but it's a different ESD, so then that doesn't necessarily make sense.
I would guess like one of the smaller districts, like Centennial Park Rose.
Maybe, yeah.
or smaller.
Mhm. I guess the next thing is then we need to set up another policy committee meeting. Which we probably need to anyway, because are we still gonna get another batch?
I think we're supposed to be getting one. This, usually in April.
Is the immunizations? I'm just wondering how quick that one is. There's a bunch of strikes in it.
This one was the one that was accordance with Oregon law, so there was a lot of law, so that's why there's a lot of add-ins. The required form is available online.
But then it
Strikes out.
strikes the
Yeah,
specific,
yeah.
so. I don't know that there's
General
anything,
ESD?
There isn't anything new.
Except those brackets on the first page.
For Cindy?
On one, two, the third paragraph, there's brackets at the end.
completed forms must be returned as directed or to the school.
Directed.
And I'm quite office, I think examine and evaluate the student. I just don't think as directed is helpful to a family, is it? So I mean, if it goes to the office will at least say, take that to the
Yeah,
athletic director.
yeah,
Um,
must be returned, period,
to the school.
or to the school, yeah.
So you wanna do to school office?
I think, I mean,
Well, sometimes the office doesn't even know what to do either.
Yeah, that's my
Athletic.
concern. I was like, if you give it to like the front office, should they'd be like, who's supposed to get
What do you
this?
want me to
Why
do
am
with
I-
mhm.
I mean, you would think like the coaches would tell them, you know,
Yeah,
bring them
exactly.
back
My
or.
experience, like when we had to fill out a form, it said specifically who it
Okay,
yeah.
needs to
So
go back
as
to.
directed makes sense
Yeah.
from that standpoint.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've only done 3, but
There's stuff about.
and at the same school, so I don't
concussion.
know what it is for all of them.
Well, that's what the high school, I appreciate that Johanna's office is like right there in the main office.
Mhm.
You don't have to walk all the way to the back of the
Upstairs, yeah, where it
building.
used to be like upstairs, like in the back corner, you're like,
Yes.
why is athletics way over there?
Yes.
So I think this one can probably
Pretty
go
straightforward.
forward
Yeah,
to the work session. These,
and did we need to do anything with the naming of facilities? It doesn't look like it.
well,
yeah.
that's a loaded.
Oh, should we leave
It's
this? up
not
for-
one recommended by OSBA.
Oh, okay.
It's been requested by board members to review.
Hmm.
So there's been some discussion about having the gym at Barlow.
Well, there's just inconsistency.
Oh.
Our policy
Yeah.
is if we're renaming a building,
Mhm.
we can name it after someone who's deceased.
That's what I thought was the rule.
But we have
Yes, but there's-
spaces
yeah.
that are being named after people.
Like
Some of which are
fields or
deceased,
libraries or
some of which are not.
gymnasiums Or.
So there's just lack of consistency.
Oh.
And so I think it's like we have a counseling center named after a counselor who is still with us. Not working with us, but
Still living.
still living.
Mhm.
And then we have other spaces that don't, so. I think it's a conversation around. A naming of a facility is one thing, and maybe the naming of a space is another. And then I know Chris had concern about, so then how long is that space stay named that
Right,
space?
right.
So for example, at North Gresham, there was a library that was dedicated. What does it mean to be dedicated to
Versus
something? Was
named.
dedicated to somebody. And then when the building was torn down, that didn't,
Oh.
that library didn't exist anymore.
Mm.
So. It's complicated.
Okay.
And honestly, it might be as much of a. Philosophical conversation that the board needs to have as opposed to just a policy committee, like it's.
Yeah, that's fine too.
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
work
we could
session?
move it forward to a work session to
Yeah.
have that fuller discussion and bring up those, like,
So
a few board members have brought up specific
So
issues
there's
with this policy. like-
buildings, there's spaces. And then the other is like the how long,
Yeah,
or, I mean, a building that's named after someone, I would think would be until there's a process to rename that building. But the spaces specifically. And living or deceased.
So move to the work session.
Well,
So they could talk
I would
about
say
it.
so. Yeah, because I can totally see Chris and I agreeing or us coming to a conclusion and then the board wanting to discuss it further, which kind of defeats the purpose of a committee, but
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, and this
Well-
one's a little different because there's not actual changes being sent from OSBA, like there's not
Uh-huh.
revisions that we're actually reviewing. It is more of that like, okay, well, how should we
mhm,
include these other aspects in
Yeah.
this policy?
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, let's bring it to a work session. I don't see it going with that.
and then we're already inconsistent, right? So then whatever decisions are made,
Right.
what does that look
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring it to a work session, but
And
with
how do
no
we go move it,
proposed
like-
language, like.
Is it retroactive to buildings that are already, like spaces that are already named? Is this moving forward? This is how we're gonna start doing it, like, yeah, there's weird things to try and
Well.
discuss.
1, 2, 3.
Feels like the conversation needs some kind of structure to it.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that one's not something that I would become involved with, but I can see people on the board.
But you're
being
moving away, you don't want a building or a space named after you.
You, I would be very, very particular of what space I would want named after. me. If there
I
was
can
one.
think of some.
The DLI school and all that.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3.
no, my goal is to have a scholarship.
Really cool.
Yeah, like the first gen students on some level.
Mhm.
So or no, that was when we. So scheduling, do you want me to send out dates since Chris isn't here? That
Yeah.
might work for people.
Mhm.
Well, wait, I think we have another one.
Yeah,
Do
you
we?
sent 2 invites
It's
out.
like, I think we have
Good.
one.
That helps.
So we're moving forward and bringing 3 back.
Yeah, never mind, we have another one scheduled for May 16th.
Mhm.
May 16th.
There's a superintendent's council meeting that day. I can probably just.
Oh, they don't even start till 9, okay?
Yeah, so I could just go late.
Okay, though, I guess that would be the. As it's further away, it's hard to drive.
People carry like baby stuff in their purses. This is what I got in my purse.
Oh, yeah. The water dish, dog dish.
I'm like, what is that? Oh. they're for treats.
When you're getting into that time of year, you need.
Hey, the good thing about May 16th is,
We're still on, right?
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Have
Yeah.
we?
Well, is that
Okay.
it's, the work session is May
Yeah, so we
21st,
should
so if
be able
there
to move
is
stuff
something
onto
we need
the-
to do quickly, we can.
Okay, and then if we need a meeting after that, we can schedule one after the May 16th.
Yeah.
Okay. Are
you.
we adjourned, finished?
We are.